The microphone was not on. Sorry, people who are listening to this recording. I just put on the microphone on. My bad. But what I did was just explained the definition of time use diary and advantages and disadvantages, and we're doing the activity. And the file for the activity exists on A-class, so please go there and take a look. Do it for yourself. See, I'm looking at the lady right now, and she's already going like, what? I'm with you. It definitely does happen. Hey, come on in. We're doing a little bit of activity. Talk to your neighbor. There's an electronic file for this on A-class. So if you want to use that, that's good. This is the physical copy. Okay. So you write down for yesterday's time use. You write down stuff you did, where you were, you think leisure or not, so on and so forth. What's up? Oh, okay. Keep on going. Okay. Can I see the word? Just quick sec.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have licensing. Here you go. You have pen? Okay. So there's the time diary file on Word file on E-class under chapter 3 if you want to use electronic, or if you want to use a physical, it's right here. Electronic? Okay. There you go. All right, I'll give you like 20 more seconds for now. You don't have to complete everything right now, so don't worry. And for those of you who had a more interesting day, if you will, it might be difficult for you to like, I did like 20 different things yesterday, Shin. How is it going? Almost there. Nice.
Pretty good.
There you go. All right, 5 seconds. Done? Person, you done?
Yep.
Good. Dog, very important. Okie dokie, just stop for now. Let's reflect on what it feels like. Did you see the advantages and disadvantages of the time use diary we just talked about? Do you feel like compared to maybe survey about, you know, one week ago or, you know, a month ago, leisure activity, this helps you to recall things better? Hopefully? No? Not isn't it easier to recollect about yesterday versus like a week ago? Oh. It's okay. I feel you. I'm the same way too. But sometimes it's our mind, like our assumption, like, you know, my days is pretty much the same. But sometimes there may be actually a little bit of differences, like just a few things, you know, across the week, things happen. Those things may not be caught, you know, we cannot catch those things if we're just recollecting, asking people to recollect over a week or month, even for that matter, because people tend to utilize this, you know, idea about how my week is typically rather than what it was actually sometimes. All right. How many of you actually finished during that time period? Pretty much. All right. Like close to 50%. Good job. How many of you haven't finished? That's good. Some of you came a little late. That's fine. Okay, so that takes a little bit of time, maybe more. Maybe it's easier to just click, 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 questions, just question different activity. How often, just click, 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 click kind of thing. Compared to survey, it may take a little more time kind of things. Any other strengths, limitations of this method that you observed? Anything? Yes, Curtis.
For me, it's just I realize how little time I have today.
Oh, you mean like free time?
Yeah.
How little free time you have? Ah, so that was your personal reflection about your life. Yeah. Now, we can actually use, for example, this kind of thing and in a practical context. For example, people use, for example, therapeutic recreation therapists sometimes use this kind of diary to facilitate people's reflection and awareness of their leisure life. Sometimes it's like a Curtis, like, oh my God, I'm doing so many things and not really leisure. Okay, where can I interject more leisure time, free time, right? Sometimes the type of activity. Oh my God, like I just all the way down TV watching or social media. Can I do something else? Sometimes it's actually the opposite to Curtis, that, okay, I actually have more free time than I thought it would be. I do. But I may not be doing the activities that I like or I enjoy or I value. Okay, what can I change? So sometimes actually there's quite a bit of reflection could happen in this kind of thing, especially when it's done over time, especially when it's done, let's say there's an intervention happening and this happens periodically, so you can reflect on your changes as well. Any other reflection, personal discovery? Nothing? Like, I know my leisure pretty well. Good. All right. So there are a few example studies that the chapter mentioned, which utilized time use diary. One of them is Zuzanek and Brian Smell. These are researchers from University of Waterloo, Ontario. And they actually conducted this time use diary with the almost 10,000 people household in Canada back in the day. So it's a massive, massive data. And collectively, they created this chart from Monday to Sunday, right? Across people, on average, how many minutes people are spending on different leisure activities. So really the free time, amount of free time. Now there are three findings that the chapter talked about. First, this part. Not surprisingly, free time generally kind of increased from Friday, started to increase on a Friday, and then peaked on Saturday, and then remain high Sunday, and then goes like Monday. Not surprising at all, right? And that's pretty much what it is. But because this was time use diary, what they could do is they could even kind of tease out the differences on weekend days, Saturday, Sunday. On survey, it's difficult to differentiate them because it's just weekend. You can ask what people do during weekend, but it's like, what do you do on Saturday? What do you do on Sunday? It's difficult to, again, recorrect on those things, but they could actually figure that out. Saturday, people tend to actually do a lot of social outing with the friends. Make sense? Does that fit with your leisure pattern too? But Sunday is more passive leisure. You're more likely to stay at home, watch TV, watch Netflix, watch Hulu, HBO, you know, gotta finish that Wednesday, gotta finish a couple other things coming out, you know. And then finally, they also had this important finding because they broke down group of people in terms of gender group, well, sex basically, binary here, as well as marital status, single, not single, employed and not employed. What they found was that across those 5 groups that they identified, employed, not surprising, but employed mother, this is a group that has substantially less free time throughout. I mean, it was still back in the day, 30 years ago. So it would be interesting to do the same study with the same scale, which is very much costly, expensive, but to see if anything changed at all. But more importantly, they found that actually that time gap well, they actually really the lowest in terms of free time quite a bit throughout the week, but especially the biggest difference was actually Sunday. So maybe this is a day when employed mother had to do a lot of grocery, housework and catching up and, just getting all things tied up and then getting ready for the next week, meal prepping maybe. There's just like, there's other things that you have to plan out, the logistic, grocery shopping, yada, yada, yada. So this is a big gender issue that you can think about. If you ever marry, if you're a woman going to get a career, which you will, right? This is where you need to talk with your partner one way or another, whether you're the mother or you're not the mother. You may not be a mother. That's good too. Anyway, so that's a very important finding. So, time use diary really help us to break it down things, the demographically, time-wise, day-wise, activity-wise, so on and so forth. Susan Shou was a professor at Waterloo as well. And she did this classic, very influential time use diary. It's almost 40 years ago, but we still consider it very innovative back in the day. Why? It goes back to the definition that we're talking about, types of definition. She used in her time use diary, both internal and external vantage point. What do we mean by that? And this study was, by the way, with the Canadian couples, heterosexual in this case. By internal definition, she meant asking people to, just like you did, each cat activity. Did you consider it as a leisure, work, mixture of both, work and leisure, or neither? She let them define, okay? But also, after those couples submitted those time use diary to her, the researcher herself categorized, without looking at the people's definition, right? Categorize each activity into work, paid work, housework, childcare, personal care, like taking showers and makeup and whatnot, or leisure. This allows her to examine the gap between how people define leisure versus how researcher, experts, maybe practitioner too, we define leisure. And that's important because if there's a gap, you move on to the field. You think something is a leisure, whatever you're working on, whatever you're providing, use camp that you're providing is leisure for your clients and family. Guess what? Maybe not for that parents, it's actually very much a job, that kind of thing. So she found actually a gap, about 15% of external leisure, as in the leisure activity that are considered as a leisure by the researcher, were actually internally, from the people's perspective, non-leisure. Those are the things like community services, sports, some of the sports. Can you believe that? Some of the sports. Social events. Have you had those moments? Your sports, your social events are actually not really leisure for you. Quick example. Any example? Any example? I'll get just, yes, please.
Stressful than fun.
You're talking about varsity. Varsity, commitment, like competition, big event. It's more of a work and pressure, obligation than the fun, relaxation, so on and so forth. I guess it makes sense. Anything else? Yes.
Work-related functions, so like Christmas parties, barbecues that your employer might be.
Year-end party, family day party event at the workplace. In Japan, it's notorious. After 5 p.m., well, actually not even 5 p.m., you have to work until like 7 or 8, and then you go to dinner with your boss and colleagues. On a weekend, you have to play golf with your colleagues. Yes.
Being a married man, sometimes visiting the in-laws.
Visiting in-laws. Not necessary. You have to say that, oh, thank you for that sweater, which I would never wear. This dinner is so delicious, although I'm allergic to some of those ingredients. Thank you very much. I love going to China. Oh my God, my wife's Chinese, my in-law in China. Great thing is that we can already talk and communicate, so that's easy for me. But anyway, they're good people too, fun people. 30% of internal leisure. internal. The activities that the participants considered as leisure were externally from the researcher's perspective, non-leisure. Yikes. That's a bigger gap, 30%. And then 35% of external work, the basically obligation activity, right? The activities that researchers thought obligation were internally, like people's perspective, it was leisure, like eating, childcare, gardening. So childcare as time consuming and problematic and gendered as gendered it is, apparently there are some moments that it feels like a leisure. Now, however, a bit of caveat, once again, Susho found an interesting gender caveat for that last part. Male in that heterosexual couples were much more likely to perceive externally defined obligated activities, the activity that looked like a work or housework and childcare to the researcher as leisure from their own perspective. Why? Susan Shou speculated, and which was confirmed in later studies, that actually male have had at least back in the day, but maybe still felt less obligated and more choice in terms of those obligation activity, because the traditional gender norm did not necessarily force them to do so. Make sense? When sometimes a male pick up that barbecue stick and do the barbecue on a Saturday afternoon, that's sometimes him choosing. There's more freedom for us to choose that, I'm gonna do this. I get to do this. Versus day to day, making breakfast every morning, that may not feel like, for example, choice for certain gender group just because of the gender norm. So we have to obviously attend to that. Now, this is also interesting stuff, and we can see this kind of stuff only because it was time-use diary. Same people, same person, define same activity differently, leisure or not leisure, depending on the times. Like, for example, 22% of the participants perceived their work as leisure one occasion and non-leisure on another occasion, paid work. Almost 40% had that kind of inconsistent definitions for housework. 85% had that kind of inconsistent definitions for childcare. Any experience with that? Sometimes same activity, same person, for you, feels like a leisure, don't feel like leisure, even like obligation kind of activity. Yes, something, Jasmine?
I brought this example up to you earlier this year. I worked for a sports team, and obviously the reason I worked for them initially, the driving factor was that I liked sports.
Yeah.
So in an average, it's not normal, 16-hour workday. The game.
I said it's 60 hours.
16-hour, yeah.
Oh, 16 hours.
Day.
Oh, 16. Wow.
Yeah. So
16s per day?
Season, yeah, because if our game is in the middle of the day.
Where did you sleep? Okay, well, sorry. when did you sleep? Sorry, and go ahead.
Beginning of the day when I was working,
Yeah.
I was working all day, but when I was doing physical labor,
Yeah.
setting things up, it was work.
Yeah.
Then I was still getting paid to watch the game.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like leisure during those 3 hours.
Ah.
I was still working.
Yeah, right. There you go. So preparation, like you just, setting up a event or whatever, that feels like it may be work.
Yeah.
But then in the game starts and you get to watch in one of the best probably place, right? On the field sometimes, really close. It feels like it's fun. It's maybe, exciting, whatever. Anything else? Curtis?
If my days are so busy, sometimes when it's super cold out, I still enjoy taking my dog out for longer walks.
Ah.
It's high energy, but my wife hates it. Whereas I enjoy that hour and a half of taking my dog out for a walk.
Even -40.
Yeah, she doesn't go out with the jacket.
So that might be your, always leisure. I don't know. That's always leisure activity, but that's great. Like walking with dogs. Sometimes it feels like a chore. Last night I was talking to my friends, playing game actually on a Discord and whatnot. And one of the friends goes oh, sorry, Shin, I have to take my dogs out. So that wasn't really his leisure. He wanted to play a game. Come on, doggy, just go be yourself, basically kind of thing. But he had to take the dog out, which doesn't happen, obviously, it's a dog. Anyway, but sometimes, when it's night outside is nice, right? You're not playing game, you're not doing anything else. It's actually nice leisurely to do so. Anything else? So this is a reality. Maddie. Ooh. You heard that? Maddie's example, breakfast on a Sunday or Saturday maybe versus other day. We cannot pick up on those things. It was just like one-time shot survey, right? It can't ask a question about how do you feel about breakfast specifically Sunday versus like other days. We don't do that typically, but it's the fact, it's the reality. So maybe whatever the program services you're providing, it may actually there is probably that variation of the experiences and feelings and definitions, people's perspective. When you do this, you can kind of pick up on this. Now, last piece of the finding from the Susho's time use diary, she found that 5 psychological subjective factors distinguished internal definition of leisure from non-leisure. What that means is that when people feel those things in their activities, they tended to define those activities as leisure. So from practitioner perspective, what we want to do is let them feel that. Have the elements that facilitates these feelings, such as enjoyment, freedom, relaxation, intrinsic motivation, and absence of judgment. Kristen. Freedom from and freedom to. I really love somebody really remember what we learned from the previous class even. We talked about there are actually 2 different kind of freedom. Well, at least. One is the freedom from. You feel free from the obligation. You're away from obligation, right? Another freedom is to actually having that options to choose something that you want to. Those are not exactly the same thing. She didn't necessarily, I don't think, it's been a while since actually I read her paper. It's been like 1 year. But I don't think she had a 2 measure for that. So she didn't differentiate. And I think she focused on a choice freedom, where people felt that they had a choice at the moment. So I don't know exactly what are those 2 kinds made a difference. But that's a really good segue, Krista, thank you, because that also bring us back to when you hear freedom and intrinsic motivation, we can remember from RLS 100 something called, oh, you do this, Neil Linger's leisure paradigm about one of the best kind of leisure human experience called a pure leisure. The guy called Neil Linger, he was a psychologist of leisure, and he defined one of the best experience as a pure leisure, and that was characterized by freedom and intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation being doing something for its own sake. You walk a dog because you love walking a dog, okay? Not because don't get that anger from your partner or something like that, okay? That's extrinsic, anyway. So as a practitioner, you're gonna get these things, and then people will feel like leisure during your services and programs. Probably that's what you want. Now, moving on to the next method called experience sampling method, which is very important. Just out of curiosity, how many of you heard this method, experience sampling method? Raise your hand. Sometimes called intense ecological, no, well, you, okay, cool, thank you. Okay, no, so that's good. You're learning something new. What it does is that it monitors people's activity time use too, but also more importantly, psychological state, subjective feelings. Back in the days, we used the pager. Do you know what the pager is? Good. This, goes like beep, beep, and it just like there's like sometimes numbers, sometimes actually text, short text, right? Right now we use this smartphone. There you go. That gave it random beep, random time, 7 to 9 times per day, give or take, depending on. It could be fewer. For a week or so, it could be a few days, it could be a week, it could be like a couple weeks. And when you get beeped or when you get that smartphone ding, what you're asked to basically do a short questionnaire, short survey to report your feelings and activities and whatnot. You can see the example of those short survey on this in this figure 3.A in your textbook. Now, I'll show you how it looks like with the video, but advantages, much more accurate recollection because you're actually responding to reporting what you did over the past half an hour or 1 hour, like on that spot. These days with the smartphone, we can actually program it so that you cannot respond to that, you cannot complete that survey after a certain time passes. Okay, so that making sure that your memory is fresh. And specifically, we can measure accurately something like emotion, which is fleeting. How much of how much of happiness did you feel yesterday or the last week? I hope that answer is not 0. But not exactly how much, how often is difficult, like to remember that. But with that, when you get, doing survey 9 times, 7 times per day, we get a better picture of that. The disadvantages and challenges, it's more intrusive, as in, think about it. You participate in a study, your phone goes like 7 times ding. You have to do a survey, like takes about 2 minutes for a week. You okay with that? We'll pay you. Typically, we'll pay you. But, right? More expensive too. We have to buy, sometimes as a practitioner researcher, we have to buy an app. There's a free version too, but then you have to know coding. Back in the day, if the pager was lost by the participants, that's just pure loss of the money, basically. And finally, it could still miss systematically certain places, certain activities. Think about it. With the ESM, typically, we don't get the response of swimming. Why? You didn't bring a phone to the swimming pool, right? It's in the locker. So you can't do that. Any other activity that you cannot report with the ESM? Think about. Someone sleeping. Or you may get actually a very angry response, either or. Like, I was sleeping, all cap, right? Scary. One of the example study recently, I used smartphone-based ESM to examine how free time, leisure activities, and leisure experiences impacted daily well-being. And I'm going to share the findings in a chapter 4 and moving on, so you don't have to worry about that right now. But let's take a look what are we actually talking about? So there is an app that helps us to do it. So if you ever feel like, yes, Katy Perry, we're not listening to you now. I wish. All right. So this link.
It's all about delivering questions and intervention needs. We've said goodbye to surveys, creating a system that leverages the power of real-time interaction. Our customers purchase an annual subscription, which allows them to use our web-based application to design life packs. These life packs consist of questions and other content that are delivered to mobile users. In this example, the researcher will set up a life pack for people who have recently suffered concussion. We created a very flexible, easy-to-use scheduler, allowing customers to decide when they want to gather information or deliver interventions to their users. Additional features allow them to create varied, progress-oriented, and outcome-dependent life packs, very different from what's possible with traditional surveys. Once the schedule has been established, the customer can select the questions to deliver at the specified time. We have many different question types and more under development. Some are typical of traditional surveys, while others capture information that just can't be captured with surveys. Our first question will be a simple slider scale, and we'll ask about dizziness using a 0 to 10 rating. We'll also add a question about fatigue using the same rating scale. In this way, we can create brief, repeated assessments to better understand the daily patterns of any human experience. Once a life pack is ready, the customer can publish it, making it available to anyone using our mobile app. The Real Life EXP app is available for free and allows any mobile user to interact with content created.
It's actually important that there's both Google and Apple. Some of them don't have both.
Just like they do for text messages and other apps. and users can swipe on the banner to immediately access questions waiting for them. Users then respond to the questions. Here you'll see the 2 symptom questions we demonstrated a minute ago. So the user can rate their level of dizziness and their level of fatigue. Once the mobile user has completed their question, the data is automatically sent to the server where customers can view the data using our real-time dashboard. The data dashboard is completely customizable, allowing customers to decide what kinds of user responses they want to track in real time. Here you can see a couple of gauges showing levels of dizziness and fatigue. This kind of real-time data gathering is not possible with surveys, and the line graphs capture trends throughout the day and week, something surveys cannot do because they're only administered once.
We're going to stop right there, but hopefully that gave some idea as to how that works. It's a short survey, and that's programmed by the app and on our platform. You can actually, design like how often, when in a day, whether it's the random, or from certain time to certain time of the day, or sometimes it can be participant triggered. When the participant are at the certain location, they can swipe it and they can open up an app. Or when participants do the certain activity, like you as a therapist or something, you prescribe some treatment, right? When the people finish treatment, they have to do this reporting. You can use that way too. So it's been used for example, in the context of park management or some urban planning and whatnot too. Like figuring out, because it also provides other type of data as well. The exact time when people are, when people are completing this survey, but also where they are. Of course, it's part of the agreement too. Like, you have to get a consent that you can get that information, but you can get a GPS, GIS data. So you exactly know where people are. So if you're, for example, working with the municipal park system, you know where the people are exactly, what kind of emotions people are feeling, whether people are satisfied, whether people know that they're in the park system, because sometimes in a city, in a greenish space, and they don't know it's actually part of the municipal park system, right? So on and so forth. Where they feel frustrated, unsatisfied, so actually you can focus, future maintenance and whatnot to a certain location. You can do that too. You know exactly where it is. And then we move on to the second and last component of this chapter 3, talking about qualitative methods. Now, so far, most of the studies, surveys, experiments, we tend to collect the quantitative data, right? Numbers. From here on, it tends to be more about words, observation, something written, so on and so forth. So it's qualitative. And one of the first things we talk about is naturalistic observation. We look at them. We look at the people. Because have you thought about it? If you're interested in some leisure activity, why don't you just go there and look? And that was actually one of the things that they did. It's also sometimes called ethnography. People in sociology, people in anthropology, they're good at this. We observe people with a specific leisure activity, specific leisure activity. You're interested in skateboarding, right? Going back to the chapter 1, how skateboarding can be problematic in our community. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If that's the question, go to that, what we call skateboard space, park. There you go. And look at them, right? And often almost always, it coincides with a certain space. Skateboarding typically happen in a skateboarding park. Of course, it happens in random places too. So that's a little tricky. Sometimes maybe you're interested in, let's say, a bar fight. That's a leisure-ish. I don't know. It's one type of experience in a leisure context. So maybe that's your study. So observation happen in a very concentrated, specific place. Now there are 2 types of observation. One is participants, and the other one is non-participants. Non-participant means that you are isolated from the target of the observation. If I am observing, I'm kind of away, and you're being observed, I'm not interacting with you. Okay, I'm not doing the activity that you guys doing, whatever that is, learning, chatting, whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm not interacting. I'm not socializing with you either. Participant observation means that the researcher, the practitioner doing this are part of that dynamics. For example, you are at the camp, you're a counselor, but you're also quote unquote observer, right? So you interact with the kids, but you're also having this, back in your head, you're actually also observing what kind of things kids are doing, what they're enjoying, what they're not enjoying, so on and so forth, right? Observation is typically done for a long time, like year, 5 years, at least couple months, maybe weeks. We use different techniques like notes and pencils, cameras, voice recorder, iPad does, phone does pretty much everything right these days. So we use those technology to record what we observe and also our thoughts. Okay, somebody said something in this leisure context, and I think that's what this means. The meaning of it is this probably. Observation tends to be more naturalistic that actually people are doing. Because think about it. People may say, oh, I work out so much in a survey, but that doesn't mean that they actually do. But if you actually at the gym and knowing that, I don't know, Joshua is coming every morning, every other morning, then well, he goes like, no, Shin, that's not true. That's fine, sorry. Using an example. That's true. I mean, he's there, he's working out. You actually see it, right? That's more stronger evidence, if you will. It's flexible method. You can add an interview, go to gym, that's your study context. You can actually talk to the people too. You can do survey maybe. It's detailed, it provides a detailed and comprehensive description of the activity, not just doing the workout, how they're doing activity, how they're interacting while working out, so on and so forth. And also what the activity means to the participants. Going back to the, let's say, bird fight, right? Bird fight, it's just violence, is it? Maybe there's a gender element to it. There's alcohol play, of course. There's other maybe cultural aspect. It happens more in the Irish pub. What's with the Irishness that prevents, facilitate those things? There's a cultural meanings and context and whatnot that we can potentially understand. Now, this advantage. This applies to everything, well, pretty much all the qualitative methods because the sample size tend to be smaller, but the generalizability can be a bit questionable beyond the observed people, beyond the observed places. But observation can happen over a long time, like years and whatnot, then it can be more generalizable. People might change their behavior when they're observed. That's the biggest threat. Because that's the point of observation, that we want to see the real world actual behavior, but then the actual behavior are actually quote unquote dishonest, right? They're changing whether intentionally or not intentionally because of the presence of the observer. Imagine, let's say the faculty of a KSR decided to do quote unquote student learning experience assessment or something like that. And then dean of the KSR, by the way, do you know the new dean of KSR? Dr. Kira Pike, okay? She, let's say, chose this course just like randomly. And she decided to just sit over there in a corner. The dean is here. What do you think? Do you think that your behavior changed a little bit? The way you sit, the way you engage with the class? Or you don't change? You're just like, eh.
Personally, when like the principal came into my class in like junior high,
Yeah.
Behaved.
There you go. There you go. That happened. And it's not, it doesn't mean that, it's the bad thing or there's a bad intention or something like that. But it's just, there's a human nature, human dynamics, right? But for the Pete's sake, I might change actually. I may not use so many swear words or, things, or I may be more sensitive about like, the kind of music I'm putting up before the class anyway, right? Can't observe too many people at a time. Of course, we only have 2 sets of eyes, so it's very difficult. We use a camera, but still, and extremely time consuming. Think about it, years of observing. Like for example, Bob Stebbins, he's the guy who became famous with the serious leisure. He observed amateur magicians in Calgary for 1 year. But that's kind of fun though, right? You get to kind of follow people actually. I was gonna say stalk, but follow people. For 1 year, he followed 30 magicians, well, basically group, community, performances informal gatherings at the pubs and whatnot, right? Associations, committee meetings, and festivals like magic festivals and whatnot. But this was very important for him because serious leisure, we'll talk about it in chapter 4, is about getting serious, right? The trajectory of people getting more skillful, more experienced, getting connected in a community, subculture community. We need to observe that over time. But the survey, for example, will just happen one time, like snapshot, the cross-sectional, what we call the cross-sectional. It's just a one-time point versus observation is over time. So he could actually see how people, novice magician, became more experienced and connected and get serious. He could also see how people negotiated their magic passion in a relation to other life domains, such as work and family, right? Some magician's partner goes like, don't go to the magic event this week. Don't you dare. You haven't done this housework. Then like, come on. I'll do this next, tomorrow, so on and so forth. Those, those things were observed because it was naturalistic observation. It's more comprehensive. Now, these days, though, we have online version. You probably guessed, because a lot of people have a leisure and interact and literally live online. It's called ethnography because net and ethnography. Nimrod and colleagues who are coming from Israel, she observed 25 online depression support community, focusing on how leisure potentially helped them. She used computer system algorithm software to filter in about 9,000 leisure-related posts. It's like a forum out of 150,000 posts. So with the technology, the observation and their ethnography is changing. Now that doesn't mean it's easier. Obviously, you have to know exactly what words to focus on, what words to filter in, what words to filter out. It gets more tricky. Because it's online, you don't see that actual in person. So you don't know the reality. You don't know the nuances of what people said and wrote. All right, sorry. 9:51. Thank you very much. I'm going to see you Friday. But hopefully you started to feel like some of the tools that you can use in a different context when you get a job. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you are thinking about submitting critical chapter reflection 1 tonight? Okay, so that's my expecting. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.